Mind loop.
Hey everyone! Do you ever find yourself staring at a blank page or a new project and just not starting? Or maybe you've begun something, but as soon as it looks a little messy or unfinished, you just want to abandon it and start over. What about when you finish something and all you can see are the flaws, even if 99% of it is great? It's like spilling tomato sauce on a white shirt. Your eyes just go straight to the stain. If any of that resonates, you might be caught in what I like to call the perfectionist trap, and it's something I've definitely struggled with myself. What is perfectionism really? It's crucial to understand what we're actually dealing with here. According to Brené Brown, perfectionism isn't about striving to be your best. Instead, it's the belief that if we live perfect, look perfect, and act perfect, we can minimize or avoid the pain of blame, judgment, and shame. Think of it as a 20-ton shield that we lug around, believing it will protect us, but in reality, it's preventing us from flight. In short, perfectionism isn't the way. It's in the way. This shows up in so many areas. Before a task, you have a perfect idea in your head, but putting it on paper would destroy its perfection, so you just don't start. This fear of tainting an idea or a blank page often leads to procrastination. During a project, you're an hour in with 8 hours to go, and it just looks ugly because it's unfinished. Your desire for perfection takes over, and you abandon it for a new, untainted project. After a project, you finish, but all you can see are the flaws, the smudges, the misaligned circles, the parts you don't like. It makes it really hard to be happy with what you've made. The perfectionist trap, why we get stuck. A huge part of this problem comes from how we form our ambitions. We look at the most accomplished people in any field, the award-winning architect, the successful fund manager, the acclaimed novelist, the prize-winning chef, and we base our own career plans on perfection. But here's where the trouble begins. When we take our own first steps, what we create is often markedly and absurdly beneath the standard that first sparked our ambitions. We become stuck in an uncomfortable paradox. Our ambitions are ignited by greatness, but everything we know of ourselves points to congenital ineptitude. This is the perfectionist trap, a powerful attraction to perfection shorn of any mature or sufficient understanding of what is required to attain it. It's often not our fault. Our media curates and presents only the peak career moments, editing out billions of unremarkable lives and years of failure, rejection, and frustration. This makes it seem like success is the norm, and we forget the oceans of tears and despair that surround even the most successful people. Our perspective becomes imbalanced. We need a saner picture of the difficulties behind everything we admire. You shouldn't just look at masterpieces in a museum. Instead, imagine going to the artist's studio and seeing the anguish, wrecked early versions, and watermarks on the paper where the artist broke down and wept. We need to understand how long it took that architect to get their first big commission. They were over 50, or how many failures an entrepreneur endured. We must recognize the legitimate and necessary role of failure. It's about allowing ourselves to do things quite imperfectly for a very long time, because that's the price we pay for the opportunity to eventually do something others might see as a spontaneous success. There's a common mindset, especially among clever, thoughtful people who are good at planning, that says, if I'm not 100% ready or perfect, I shouldn't start. This leads to endless replanning and never feeling confident enough to take action. The shift we need is to adopt a new mindset. Start even in points of uncertainty, and confidence will come through repeated action. So, given how much of a negative impact perfectionism has, how do we overcome it? While the absolute best way is to unpack your entire childhood and understand that your worth isn't defined by what you accomplish, that can feel incredibly daunting, especially for perfectionists. It's not a switch you can just flip. That's why I found a simple, habit-forming tool that can supplement that wider emotional journey, the 70% rule. In short, it looks like this. Aim for 70%, not 100%. It sounds basic, but let me explain. If I ask myself, can I make this video perfectly? The answer is always no. But if I ask, can I make it to at least 70% of perfect? The answer is usually yes. And if the answer is yes, then you should make it. Think about it. If you're trying to quit drinking and you fall off the wagon one night, instead of giving up because your perfect streak is broken, look at a longer period. Were you sober for at least 70% of your days? If so, you're making progress. The trick is to be content with anything above 70%. How to implement the 70% rule? The best way I've found to implement this is through repetition and reward. Anytime you catch yourself beating yourself up because something isn't perfect, you have to interrupt that thought pattern. Ask yourself, was it better than 70%? If the answer is yes, you immediately respond with, nice, yeah, you won. It might sound a bit cheesy, but it's usually enough to interrupt the old pattern. And if you interrupt it enough times, you start to develop a new pattern. It's about constantly reminding yourself to do it. Another powerful question to ask yourself daily, especially if you're prone to over-planning or getting stuck, is, what did I do today to create a result rather than just create a good feeling? This helps you shift from simply planning or thinking to actually taking action and producing something. Why the 70% works. It lowers the barrier to entry. The biggest problem with starting so many projects is simply starting. If you're slumped on the couch and ask, can I do the single greatest workout of all time? The answer is no. But if you ask, can I do a pretty good workout? Could I go just slightly above mild at the gym today? The answer is usually, yeah, I could. At that point, you tend to run out of excuses and just get going. 2. The law of diminishing returns. Imagine a graph with time on the x-axis and output, how good a project is, on the y-axis. Getting to 70% might take a certain amount of time, but pushing that extra few percent to get to 90% or 100% takes a disproportionately long time for a smaller increase in quality. You could spend that extra time making other pretty good things. Consider 3 people over a week. The imperfectionist makes 7 pretty good things, 7 one-day projects. The perfectionist makes 3.5 really good things, 3.5 two-day projects. The hyper-perfectionist makes 2 incredible things, 2 three-day projects. You might think the hyper-perfectionist is best, but here's the twist. Every time you execute and finish a project, you get better at making projects. This is due to both external feedback and the internal feedback loop you get from finishing things. The person who made 7 things in a week is actually expanding their potential. As the saying goes, 70% of a really big pie is better than 95% of just an okay pie. 3. It helps you finish. This is a tough truth, but your body of work is only as good as the projects you finish. Sometimes finishing is incredibly hard because you always feel you can tweak it slightly. But the question isn't what's wrong with this, it's is this greater than 70%? If it is, just exhale and let it go. 4. It reinforces the truth. The truth we're reinforcing is that you are not defined by what you can accomplish or produce. The more you make things at 70%, the more you realize that the world doesn't hate you at all for making something imperfect. This might sound wacky to a non-perfectionist, but if you are one, it deeply resonates. Basically, the more you make stuff at 70%, the more you realize that your work is not your worth. Final thoughts. Once you've hit 70% on a project, you're welcome to keep polishing it to 85% or 90%, but at some point, you've just got to get it out there. And remember, your specific number might be different. You're looking for a number that successfully lowers your barrier to entry and gets you to just start something, and also helps you finish. Whatever number helps you achieve that, that's the right one for you. As the writer Anne Lamott so brutally yet truly puts it, I think perfectionism is based on the obsessive belief that if you run carefully enough, hitting each stepping stone just right, you won't have to die. The truth is that you will die, anyway, and a lot of people who aren't even looking at their feet are going to do a whole lot better than you and have a whole lot more fun while they're doing it. So, go out there, aim for 70%, and start creating.